How are you, mate? How are you getting on? You good?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. What have you been up to? You were down in Wexford the weekend, were you?
I was in Wexford, yeah, on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday. I made it down to the Salty Islands. It's a place that, funnily enough, I saw a German photographer was at a couple of years ago, and it sparked my interest when I saw that he was with some puffins. I never knew that Ireland had puffins, and ever since that moment, I wanted to try and get down. And fortunately enough, one of the boys on the team, Foster Horn, is a Wexford local, and we organised a boat and headed down to the Salties to check out the puffins.
And he took you out in the boat himself and the brother.
Yeah.
How long was the journey?
So from Dublin to get down to the Salties it's a 2 hour drive. Um, Foster himself, he lives about an hour from Dublin, so essentially halfway. And then the boat trip was 20 minutes out. So
Okay.
yeah, out on like a dinghy kind of thing, and easy enough. Yeah, we were fortunate with the weather. It wasn't too choppy, the water, and the sun was out, so had a brilliant time. Yeah.
And how was the body with the long enough journey? Because last week, I'm sure, was a bit of a war of attrition getting back into things.
Yeah, so we actually played Saturday and Sunday against Team GB. They came over and we had an in-house sevens comp. So the body was pretty tired, but we actually drove down on Sunday night after the weekend and after all the games, so that we didn't have to do it in the morning because we wanted to make sure that we could get out in the morning. So yeah, just drove down an hour, saw Fozzie and like his family, and had dinner, which was really nice. And then in the morning got the boat sorted. I was sore enough, but actually I wasn't too bad. The pitch was quite forgiving. I was actually saying it to the lads when I was out there. I felt like the pitch was really well maintained and in great nick. So I wasn't as sore as I was expecting to be, but I was still sore enough. We went for a swim when we were out on the islands anyway, so we got our recovery in and a bit of a walk as well. So not too bad.
Active recovery.
That's it.
Yeah, but that's the first sevens tournament you've played in how long? Like, it's got to be a little bit tough to get straight back into a full 2 day style competition. Like,
Yeah, I guess the last time I would have played at a sevens comp would have been like 15 months ago, maybe March 2020 when we played in Vancouver. I was fortunate enough to play in Bermuda at the tens, so obviously not the same as sevens, but again, there's still a bit of a mix of sevens and 15s there with the high style or high pace of running rugby. So I was involved in that. Now we didn't play a whole lot there because of some other things to do with COVID and whatnot, but that's a small part of the story. And then playing in the back row 15s with the Giltinis has probably helped me in staying fit, because I found the style of playing seven or back row in 15s and then moving over to sevens is quite similar, just because you're always involved. There's something to do. You're hitting a ruck, you're making a tackle, making a carry. So getting stuck in for 80 minutes has kind of helped me. But yeah, there was a bit of a transition just to get my head screwed on and remember a few things that I might have forgotten about, and just getting the D set up and all that kind of stuff. So really good, really happy with how I got on, and really fun time.
but this is like, you played 13 or wing in the past. Like, in school, you were 13, weren't you? So, like, moving to seven, then all of a sudden, now what age are you now? 26, 27?
28.
28, sorry. Yeah, but there you go. Like, moving to seven all of a sudden, that had to be a little bit tough. Did you have to put on any weight? Did they
Yeah,
ask you to put
so
on any weight? Are you carrying a few extra kegs now on the sevens field? That makes it a little bit
yeah.
tougher.
Yeah, growing up I was center wing. I kind of liked it, but I think I probably would have much preferred to be in the back row. But at the time, like when I was young, I was definitely a skinny kid. Didn't really have much weight to me, so the backs probably suited me a lot more. And then I was also learning. I only started playing when I was 14, so it's probably a little easier to learn when you're standing out in the wing, or playing maybe a bit of center, where you don't not getting on as your hands on the ball as much, but you can kind of, every time you get it on the ball, you can just kind of run with it. So yeah, the transition was very gradual, because I think my whole sevens career, anyone that kind of commentated on games, they would always say like, "Oh, Harry McNulty, like back row style player," kind of thing. So I think I just turned into quite a back row style player through my sevens career in the way that I played. I was playing in the forwards and the sevens, so it was quite a natural transition over. When I was speaking to the coach, Darren Coleman, going over to Giltinis, he was like, "Yeah, we see you as a back rower, but you know your capabilities of being able to play in the backs as well is quite interesting." it's also a point that a lot of guys have said to me, is that they see the future of rugby having hybrid style players. So having the likes of, say, imagine like a Manu Tulagi who could play in the back row, and then you would have someone else in the centres as well. So then next thing you know, you've got like an extra additional player with an amazing skill set of the backs, but then also the physicality of a forward. So that is an interesting aspect, and it's cool that I'm able to jump in there. I have had to put on a little bit of weight. They did ask me to try and get up to like 103. I was playing at 98 with the sevens. Definitely not 103. I'm more like 100. So I'm kind of in the middle of both at the moment. So not too bad. I definitely have been probably around this weight playing the sevens once or twice. So I'm not hurting as much as I possibly could be, so, which is good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you said there, like you're playing quite a high tempo game with the Giltinis and keep the ball alive an awful lot and throw it around. And it's got to make it a little bit easier to get back to sevens. You're even finding yourself out in the periphery the odd time and getting a couple of meat pies for yourself. And but you've been unlucky as well in that the injury you sustained playing in the league this year. And I was told that injury was when you were diving for the try line and you hit it with a little bit more than you wanted to.
Absolutely not. I don't know who you were speaking to, because that's a false source. But yeah, like I've been unlucky in a sense, because I've actually, my 5 years playing for the sevens, like I basically never had an injury. Any injury that I did have, I basically would have come back from in time for a tournament. So it was a bit weird, like sitting on the sideline, being in a cast and breaking my hand. I actually broke my hand about in the first like 20 or 30 minutes of the game, but I didn't realize what I did because it was so innocuous, like literally just a small little bump of my hand, and I heard like a little click, and I thought I dislocated my knuckle, and I thought it just popped back in, and that was the clicking noise, and I had a numb sensation kind of running through my finger and my hand. So that all kind of made sense to me, because I'd never done it before. And even afterwards the game, the doctor was feeling around, and I wasn't in that much pain at all, really. So he's like, "Oh, just go back to LA and get a scan. You should be all right." And I have a broken hand, but no, it was not when I dove. Even though a lot of people seem to think that. If you look through my history of sevens, I didn't score that many tries, but I'd say at least 50% of them that I did score, I did dive. So I think I know what I'm doing a little.
Well, you have a bad history with diving though as well, because in Hong Kong, when you did that dive, you got a bit of stick for that, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a bit of booing, but that was the only time I've ever been booed. I guess because we were
on a rugby
playing,
field anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But we were playing against Hong Kong in the final in Hong Kong. So I think if I scored in any manner, it was the first try. So I think I was going to get booed anyway. So funny enough, that came up just yesterday when we were in training. We were talking about Hong Kong and all that kind of stuff, and I actually had a vision, like a dream, kind of me doing that, like scoring in Hong Kong and diving and everything. So it was quite cool for all that to come together. But yeah, the boos were it's all part of it, I suppose.
It's all part of it, yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
listening to you tell the story of the Irish Sevens kind of and how you made your way through the ranks and up to where you are now, like this is really the big one then, the repechage coming up, isn't it? Like this is everything, I suppose.
So it's kind of it's funny how it all works out. When we were in our first season of the sevens, it was 2015. So there was actually the Olympic qualifier was taking place for Rio. And we ended up going to Monaco in the same exact style tournament. How many years ago is it now? 2016, like 5 years ago. And just having that opportunity to have tried to qualify for the Olympics back then was amazing. And obviously we were nowhere near as accomplished in our sevens journey. Back then we were still pretty raw. And Spain ended up winning that tournament. They beat Samoa in the final last play of the game, which was incredible to watch and see. But for us now to kind of go through everything we've gone through, qualify for the World Series, we got a third in London when we weren't even on the series, played in the World Cup, like all the players that have come through, Jimmy O'Brien, Hugo Keenan, Alex Wootton, you've got like all these names, all these moments have happened, and now next thing you know, you're back to basically your first season when you were playing in the sevens, to back to Monaco with an opportunity to go to the Olympics. So yeah, really wild ride, really amazing opportunity. I'm super excited for it. The competition that's going to be there is going to be world class. Like France, technically at home to an extent, Monaco being in France, and they're a brilliant team. We've played them so many times over the years in Europe and stuff. So you've got Samoa, Tonga, Hong Kong again, Chile, who are a brilliant side as well, and then there's even more teams to be involved. So it's winner takes all, and every moment counts, and we're just going to have to be on our best, really.
Yeah, lots of tough teams there. I can imagine playing against the Polynesian teams is a rough one usually. Like, do they try and rough you up on the field when you're playing against them? Like, just try and smash every ball?
Yeah, the Polynesian teams, like the island teams, they're brilliant for trying to smash you. Anyway, I remember we played Tonga in Hong Kong, and we had like a penalty move really early in the game, and there was just this long ball that was passed, and you could just see, like, as the balls were going, this Tongan is just running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I can't remember. I think it might have been Jimmy O'Brien who caught the ball, and he just got absolutely cut in half. And from that moment on, it was short passes, but make sure that they didn't give him an opportunity. But yeah, like, but the thing with sevens is anybody can beat anybody on the day. Spain have beat New Zealand on the World Series. Like, we came third in London that time, so we beat the USA, we beat England, we lost to Fiji in the semis. But realistically, when it comes to sevens, it's a pretty open playing field. So if you're not switched on and the other team wants it more, then you're going to lose, basically. So we have to make sure that every game we treat it like a final, basically.
Bounce to the ball, as you said before, but like those games, I'm interested. Like, they must be interesting to play in, because obviously you guys play quite a pressurized defensive kind of system as well. So then neither team must get a break. So you just must be gassed at the end of those games, because when they have the ball, you're putting pressure on them. And then when you have the ball, they're just trying to take your heads off, as you said. So
yeah, you have to be smart with the way that you play. Obviously, like, one mistake is going to lead to a try, and if it doesn't lead to a try, it's probably a massive line break, and you're on your own try line of trying to defend, and you can only defend for so long, realistically. So yeah, like, whenever we play a team, there'll be a certain game plan that we'll try and implement. So if we feel like it's going to be a really atrocious game, let's say, then we'll either try and keep the tempo really high. So with the atrocious game, there's going to be probably penalties associated, because teams are going to try and turn over the ball, or maybe there's big tackles that are going to be put in. Every now and again, you're going to get a high shot. So if teams are really putting it in that energy, then if you go with a quick tap, next thing you know, you might catch someone 10 meters offside and get another penalty, and then possibly a yellow card. Sevens is probably a lot more sensitive to a yellow card than the 15s game. So little things like rolling the ball away after a penalty, you'll get a yellow card for that, rather than just leaving it down. Where in the 15s game, they'd probably laugh at you if you were saying, like, "Oh, sir, that's a yellow card offense." Or the other way that you can do it is, if you feel like you want to apply a lot of pressure, but you want to take the game into your own hands because the other team's trying to go fast, you get a penalty, you slow it down, maybe go for a line out, kick the corner, take your full 30 seconds. And then you're kind of nearly putting the pressure on the clock, because if you take your penalty, there's a 30-second time limit, but if you take your 28 seconds, 29 seconds, you're taking that out of the clock. When you score a try, there's another 30 seconds to kick. So kicking on the 28th second, then when the kicker comes back to a kickoff, there's another 30 seconds. Next thing you know, there's a minute and 30 seconds that you could technically take away without even playing. Yeah. To an extent.
You'd never.
So there's all the, I wouldn't do it, because I don't kick.
yeah. But fair, yeah.
But there is moment that you would do it for instance, like, at the end of the game, second half, and you're up by 2 tries. If you can take a minute and 30 out of a game just by line out, scoring a try and then the kick and then the kickoff, like, next thing you know, like, you're putting yourself in a really fantastic opportunity to hold on to that game. Whereas if you took them all quick, that's a lot of time in sevens for the other team to try and score and then really put the pressure on you, and you've got to hold on to the ball and back and forth. So yeah, there is a bit of tactics that go into it, even though it is quite a quick game. You've got to think pretty quick. Yeah.
That's so much of the game as well, though. Like, because it's only 7.5, like a minute 30 is massive. Like, and the other thing as well, it's just giving you time to get your breath back because you'd be absolutely blown.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, like if you're quick tapping as well, and they go down a man, you're just, by looks of things, try get the ball to Terry or Jordan on the wing there and let them run around the man that's on his own.
Exactly, it's quite advantageous when you get the old 6 men. So. Yeah, it is very tactical and trying to figure out like the best way to go about it. But yeah, realistically, like you only have a certain amount of opportunities in a sevens game. Like we always talk about it when we're training. You probably only get like four opportunities a half, really, with the ball in hand. Just due to the nature of the game, a turnover, a knock on. Silly penalty or something, like you'll end up giving the ball back. You're not going to hold on to it for the entire game. So if you got 4 opportunities each half, then geez, you really want to be coming away with at least 50 to 75% of those as a scoring opportunity in order to make sure you're going to win that game, because otherwise it's the other team going to do it. And how long can you defend for, really? So yeah, it's an interesting one. It goes so quick, and if it doesn't go your way in say in one of the games, but you still got 4 more games to go over the weekend, you got to turn it around really quick and really forget about what just happened and start focusing on the next game, which is actually one of the reasons I love sevens, is because if you have a bad game, you've got an opportunity 2 hours later to make it right, or really show people what you're capable of doing even. So that's one of the things with 15s, which is quite different and really can be quite mentally draining on a lot of players. Is right, you have a bad game on Saturday, then next week is like 7 days to the next game, but because you played a bad game, there's an opportunity that you might be dropped, so you might not play that game. Then you have to try and work your way back into the team, so you might get on the bench for the following game, and then you get 20 minutes or 15 minutes at the end. So next thing you know, you play one bad game, it's 3 weeks down the road that you're actually playing again, or 2.5 weeks down the road that you're playing again. You're kind of questioning your capabilities and are you good enough, or am I doing the right thing? Does the coach like me? Blah 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 blah. Where in sevens, it's like, okay, I had a bad game. Okay, maybe I'm on the bench for the next game, but realistically, like I'm going to have an opportunity in 2 hours time to play again, and it's a whole new team and new setup and everything like that. So that's a really great part of the game.
But interesting on the tactical aspect, like you have quite a tough group, as we touched on in the repechage. Do you do much video on those teams? Like, because you can't really in recent times, I suppose, because there's been no tournaments. So how difficult is that to prep for?
It's one of those things. Like previously, say if sevens was going normally, like if we were on the World Series, yeah, you'd get your group, and then straight away from the group, then there would be all the video would be put into a system which is called Huddle, which is like just like an area where they have all the games and they're coded, so you could literally click to say like all of Samoa's lineouts, and then all those lineouts would then show up, or scrums or kickoffs, whatever. So yeah, we would. It's a little different now, because even some of the teams that you're playing would, like, where would you even get footage of them from? That would be difficult. So actually what happens mainly is we will try to figure out the first team that we're going to play based on the draw. And then if there's any review that we can do on them, we will. If we can't, then obviously just focus on ourselves. And then after the first game takes place, all the other teams will have played. So then there will be footage of all the teams playing. And then based off that, then you can kind of get a sense of what they're doing and how they play. And then we would do that. So like by the end of day one, let's say that you'll have like 3 or 4 games done with this tournament. So then there's 3 or 4 games that you can review of the team that you're going to be playing the next day, kind of thing. So that's usually how it would be done for a tournament like this. Yeah. But yeah, normally it wouldn't be like that. Yeah.
But since you've come back now over from LA, I'd imagine not a whole pile in terms of system has changed. Has it been very easy to get back into things, like especially in terms of those few games at the weekend? Like
Yeah, fortunately, like there's only so much you can really do on the sevens field. So fortunately enough, the system that I've come back to is relatively same. For me anyway. I've been there 5 years. I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing that I'm able to come back and remember it all and feel comfortable. Changing it up again with COVID, it's difficult to have to change too much because your opportunity to play against other teams and see if it's working was very limited. Right. So if you're changing it all up and then going into the biggest tournament of
Yeah.
some people's careers or of the year, and anyway, not really have played that a new system is quite difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been able to slot in. There was one or two things that I kind of forgot about or whatever. So I got a quick learning after that, which is all good. It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
You don't want to come in thinking that you know absolutely everything when that could be your downfall. So the lads welcome me back with open arms as well, which is great. You never know how that's going to go. So it's been good to be back. Yeah.
Yeah, but as you said, like you were there for the first 5 years and then obviously over to LA before the call came through from Anthony Eddy and David Nusafora. Were you a bit sad about the lads going ahead without you? What was the feeling there, or was it always in your head that you were like, oh, I might get back for the?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like obviously the way that the last year has gone has been very different to anyone's rugby career. Having like basically a full year out. So my brother was he plays in LA with me now, but prior to that he was playing in the States, and it was back in like June or July. There was an opportunity came through basically to try and play with my brother, and I was just trying to figure out whether or not sevens would go ahead. Would the Olympics go ahead? So that's what I was trying to think of, like basically a year ago. And personally, I came to the decision that I didn't think sevens would go ahead, which it hasn't. And I didn't think that the Olympics would go ahead, which there's still a lot of pressure from the locals in Japan. So 70% of people don't want it to go ahead. So like, based off me reading that, I was kind of like, geez, I don't know how it could go ahead. And I just thought, what an amazing opportunity to try and, go out to the States. At the time as well, rugby was coming back in New Zealand and Australia because they were domesticated. So they kept it within the borders, and seeing the US had a league, I was like, well, that's a domestic league. So the opportunity for rugby to come back is higher than sevens, which is completely international. So based off that, I kind of was like, yeah, you know what, it's a good opportunity. LA fits my bill as well because I'm into my content creation and video and photo, and it's the best place in the world for all that kind of stuff. So I went, and then, based off the back of that, I basically said to myself, like, this is your big boy decision. If you can't qualify or if you can't come back the Olympic qualifier, if it does go ahead, like, you're just going to have to live with that decision essentially. And I was happy with that. Just because it was such a maybe, it still is a maybe, and I couldn't realistically at the 28 years of age wait 16 months, 17 months for a maybe, because if it doesn't go well, then season's over. Like, where do you go from there? You're kind of left out and on your feet. If you want to go to the MLR, it wouldn't be until next January. There is some serious stuff that's meant to go ahead later this year. Again, it's hard to tell with everything that's going on. So yeah, look, I kind of had it in my head that if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, like, I'm just going to have to live with it. So yeah. I was happy with that. And then fortunately, it all kind of did work out. That I got the call from the RFU, Anthony and David, and they were asking me, what do you think the chances are for you to come back? And I was like, look, that isn't my decision. Yeah. I can't tell you if I can or I cannot. You're going to have to just speak with the LA Giltinis management. And thankfully, they were open to speaking with the RFU. And there's a bit of past history with the coaches and management in the RFU and the Giltinis, as both are from Australia. So they kind of knew each other, and they spoke, and they came up with me to come back anyway and give it a crack. So that's kind of how I got here. So very, very fortunate to have the support.
That's the most analytical answer to a question about emotion I've ever heard in my life. He's like weighing up the options and doing the calculations. And look, it sounds like it was a really good decision. And as you said, it was just a fantastic opportunity that you had to say yes to. And you get to go over and play with Sean. You haven't played with him since what, school, like, would it be?
We never played together in school. We were in the same school, but 2014 or 15, we played UCD for one game, got on together. So now we've had a couple of games in the Giltinis together. But yeah, like, I don't think I've ever thought about anything as in depth as I did for this decision. But like, if you ask me any other questions about my thought process, I'd be like, oh yeah, sure, I just went down and saw what happened. But for something like this, it was just like,
it's a big decision.
It was a very big decision. I'm very happy with my decision. I do love the sevens, and it was, if COVID never hit, I probably would never have gone. I would never have gone to LA this year. But fortunately, I did, because LA is one of the most talked about, I think, teams probably in the rugby circle at the moment, and
definitely
they're doing an amazing job with the social media. They have a full media team who come in basically. You nearly say every day, depending on what's going on, and creating content, having fun, and it's quite player driven, and guys come up with ideas for social media, and basically they get the okay. There's not really been any bad words said about it, or people saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. They really want us to post stuff and be interactive, even after the guys had a week off. So they were in Mexico, Palm Springs, San Diego and stuff, and the management were on to the players, basically asking them to send across any photos that they really like from their time off, so that they could, accumulate those and post them on social media. So, you don't get that a lot with some teams, especially in rugby. The best probably that do it outside of LA would be Bristol and like the Babas. Other than that, it's kind of difficult to see what other teams are really taking it on. But I think it's really the way forward, especially trying to bring in the younger generation and keep them interested.
But you obviously all get on really, really well over there as well. Like, and as you said, it's a player-driven kind of team culture. So that obviously helped with you going over there and seeing the lads train over here. And it just seems that you're fitting very well into all of these teams in terms of not just on the field, but socially as well. So the social side of the Giltinis has to be massive factor in you playing so well together this year as well, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the guys, there's a lot of experience in that team. Obviously, there's like a lot of big names who've been around the block for a long time. So they understand what works and what doesn't work. And being on the further end of their career, like, obviously they want to take it seriously and play well, but at the same time, they want to make the most of their time playing in the States, and they've got their families over, and they want to have good crack as well, which is a fantastic mix. And they really know how to do it right to an extent. So I actually missed out on the first tour. The lads went out to Hawaii for like pre-season for about a month just to get to know each other. It was one of the safest places for COVID at the time. So, it wasn't just going out to Hawaii for the sake of it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pressure on LA to actually leave LA and go to another state to base themselves for the entire year, let alone just for preseason. So I was in Bermuda. I had some issues with my paperwork on my visa and stuff, so I ended up missing all that. But even just being included in the team the last couple months, yeah, like socially, it's great crack. The lads are coming up with ideas. You've probably seen that they have, some of the guys have these things called Super 73s, which are electric bikes. They go like 55 kilometers an hour. They come into train on them. They go up the beach on the boardwalk, drive them in. There's a whole crew. They're looking at getting like leather jackets, I think, with like badges or whatever made up.
Giltinis on the
emblems.
back,
yeah. So they have their own little crew there.
I was chatting to Luke about that.
Life.
Luke is claiming that was his idea.
Oh, yeah.
So he is, he was the one that came up with all that. But go on, making friends for life, etc.
Yeah, making friends for life. They obviously get their crew, and I'm up in Venice, so I'm a little bit further away, just in the different direction. So we've got a little bit of a crew up there. we go for coffees in certain places or get brunch, whatever. So it's great. It's fantastic. Absolutely loving it. And
did you request to go up to Venice? You had to be. You're like, one condition: I have to be in the hipster part of town if you're signing me.
No, it's funny. It's funny how it all works out. But essentially, the way that it was if you didn't have any preference or you didn't really mind where you lived, then the Giltinis basically organized it for you on your behalf, and they found an apartment complex down in Redondo Beach, which is like 20 minutes from training south. And there's like a few boys in there and they're loving it. And then the majority of the gang are basically between Manhattan Beach and Redondo Beach. So Manhattan, Hermosa, and Redondo, and the lads love it. And then there's 6 of us who are up in Venice. And the way that the Venice thing worked out, it was basically, they said, like, look, if you want to live somewhere specifically, then like let us know, and we've got a budget per month for your allowance or whatever. So that's why some guys are on those other beaches and they found houses they want to stay in. So actually, when I landed in late, I was picked up by the manager, Adam Fryer, and I'm in the car with him. He takes me for a breakfast or bit of food, coffee, and then he just turns to me. He's like, look, I've got this showing in Venice in this apartment. I think you really like it. I think it would suit you. Would you like to go and have a look? So I said, fine, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I'm literally in the country 24 hours or whatever. And go down. It's a really nice apartment, and like about six apartments in the apartment block, so not that big. 2 streets from the beach, 1 street over from like the main street in Venice called Abikini. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's perfect, let's do it. So that's kind of how I ended up there. Coming over, I didn't really know where I wanted to live. I didn't really know. I had been to LA before, but I didn't really know the city all that well. But I'm really happy with where I am living, and I'm living with Glenn Bryce, who played over in Scotland, over in Edinburgh, but also played for Scotland Sevens. So we've got kind of some same interests, and we know the same players, and been on tour to the same places. There's actually funny living with Glenn. The guys in the Irish team have kind of got to know him in a sense, just kind of seeing his personality or whatever. And in our dressing room in the High Performance Center in Dublin, we have all these photos up on the wall that are from various tournaments and various games and whatnot. And Glenn is actually up on the wall in the background of a photo of Terry in the middle of a game. So it's just funny how it all works out. That I'm living with him now, and he's up on the wall here in the High Performance Center. So that's great. Yeah.
That's mad that you didn't know each other at all though beforehand, because you definitely have a bit of a bromance going on now, don't you?
Yeah, we definitely do. We had played against each other, obviously, but for whatever reason, we just, I guess, never crossed paths at the tournament. There's so many players. I mean, there's 16 teams with 13 players, and you've got their management or whatever, and then you'd be put in hotels, and sometimes you have a floor to yourself in terms of a team, but then other times there might be mixed teams. But Scotland was just never a team that we seemed to have stayed with on the same floor. But then also, I don't want to really get into the details of it all, but essentially in the European Sevens, like all the teams from Europe on the World Series compete in it as well, but Scotland don't. So when we were playing in Europe, Scotland were never actually in those tournaments where you'd have Wales and England. So like I would have become really good friends with a lot of those guys in there. Like France would be playing in there as well, Spain, Russia, but Scotland just aren't a part of it essentially. Yeah. So when we were getting into the series, it was kind of when Glenn was just getting off the series as well. So just didn't cross paths, but I'm glad now we get to live together and we're having the crack and doing Taco Tuesday and all that kind of stuff. He's good energy. He's a good lad. So I have a lot of fun with him.
You obviously get to meet a lot of fellas with very good energy, as you just said there on the Sevens circuit, including one Luke Traherne, who I've heard that you kidnapped at one stage, but I don't know if that's true. Is it weird to play against these lads so consistently when you're such good mates with them? Like, I know once you get in the field, it's like you want to win, but like there must be some part of your psyche that's like, even might go the opposite way, and you're like, geez, I want to smash him now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some people really struggle with it, or that not struggle. I mean, but they say they don't like it. So it's really down to your personality. So the way the sevens works is you'll literally have 16 teams in one hotel, or you'll have 8 in one and 8 in another kind of thing. So you're eating in the same places. You're waiting outside the meeting room for the other team to finish, and the whole team comes out, and then you go in. The chances are that the team that's coming out could be in the pool that you're in, and you know that they just did all their review on you, and you're getting a lift, and there'll be 5 different teams in the lift, and you just kind of chat away, or even every now and again you might have to share a bus to training to the fields with the different teams. So for me personally, I actually really enjoy it. I like meeting guys from other teams and becoming friends with them, and just having a bit of crack. So when I see them around, I say hello and have a bit of a laugh. And for me, it kind of just, they're a person at the end of the day. So when I see them and chat with them, it kind of breaks them down just like a normal person. It's not like the person that rugby player that I would have watched on TV and kind of been in awe of, the likes of someone like Cecil Africa, let's say. I've become really good friends with him from outside the sevens, but still, even so, making friends with someone like Cecil Africa is never a bad thing.
No,
because when you're on the field, then it's like, I know this person, but I know that he's the same as me. He's just a normal person with extraordinary capabilities, except for I don't have those extraordinary capabilities. But for me personally, I feel like I can play really well against the people that I know, and I'm a bit more confident in a weird way, just like in a roundabout way. So like Luke, I've become really good friends with. Basically, when we were going through like all the divisions in Europe, Wales were on the series, and basically the flight over to Cardiff is like 30 minutes. So we used to do training camps in Wales at their high performance center when they were preparing to go to Sydney, preparing to go to different tournaments during the year, because it was great prep for us, but then also it was great prep for them as well. And then Luke, I don't know, we just started chatting and became good friends. We ended up swapping jerseys, and after Vancouver, all those months ago, 15 months ago, whatever it was, we actually ended up staying on, and we did a road trip together. And Foster Horn was a part of that road trip for about a day, and it was Foster's idea to kidnap him. So,
and that was when you were up in Whistler, and there was a hot tub situation or something, was it?
Yeah. So basically, we're trying to do all the bookings for our trip, because we left it really until when the tournament was over, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And myself and Luke like to travel, but also we like to try and get a bit of input from locals. So at all your sevens tournaments, you have a liaison officer, and that person would take care of your team essentially for the week, organize basically where the bus is going from, where training's on, all that kind of stuff. So we had a liaison officer, and so did Luke, and chatted to them about what to do. So we went to Whistler, and then wanted to go over to Vancouver Island, so we rented a car. But Luke booked this hotel, and basically we get up to this hotel in the middle of Whistler, like normal enough looking hotel, and get into the room, open the door, bathroom is on the left, shower or whatever, and then you come in, and then there was bed, and then tucked into the corner was a massive hot tub in the room. Like, unreal. Just straight away, just turned it on. It's basically like a bath hot tub, because it wasn't full of water at all times. You filled it up and had to get the temperature right and all that, but it had all the jets, like could fit probably 4 or 5 people if you wanted. It was about 4 feet away from the bed, but it was absolutely brilliant.
Why would you want it so close to the bed, man? That doesn't make any sense.
I have no idea, but I was not complaining. Like, we couldn't go skiing because as professional rugby players, it's actually in the contract that you can't do any other sports, because if you get injured, you're not going to be covered essentially, and they could take away your contract. So I could imagine after a day skiing, coming in and like hopping into the hot tub would be absolutely fantastic. But for us, we post tournament, getting up to all sorts, a bit of drinking, whatever, going down to the pub and having a bit of crack. So prior to all that, first thing we did was went to the off license, got a few cans, and turned on the hot tub, sat in the hot tub, had a few drinks to celebrate a long 2 weeks on tour, and what actually ended up being our last trip on the sevens altogether. So we made the most of it, and then yeah, we hired this. We wanted to get a cool car. We're doing a road trip. Let's get something cool. We tried to hire a Jeep Wrangler because it was still March, so it's snowing in Vancouver, especially out in Whistler. So we wanted to try and get something that was like a bit 4-wheel drive, whatever, big Jeep. But in typical rent a car fashion, oh, the car's not back yet. We don't have it, but we're willing to give you a free upgrade. So they gave us a Dodge Durango, which was a 7-seater. I think it was like 600 or 700 horsepower, blacked out, supercharged kind of thing. So we were only delighted to get into that, and we actually needed it. Not that we got stuck or anything, but even going the road up and the road back down, it's the sea to sky highway, beautiful drive, but there was snowing in parts. And then when we went over to Vancouver Island, only a couple of days prior, there was a massive landslide that took out the part of the road and that we needed to go down in order to get over to a place called Tofino, which is a beautiful surfing town.
Yeah.
And at the time when we got there, they managed to fix one lane, but still at the same time, you wouldn't want to be driving around in like a Prius or anything like that.
No.
You'd be struggling to get across. So yeah, that was a trip and a half, and I absolutely loved it. I'd love to go back.
That was interesting now that you said about the skiing though, that you're not allowed to ski. So obviously when you went to Tofino, then you weren't allowed to surf either.
I mean, surfing, we didn't surf. It was too cold, but like, I mean, realistically, like the rugby teams would be most concerned about kind of skiing and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because of how easy it is to hurt yourself in
ACLs.
so many ways. Yeah. That's like the big one.
Yeah.
I mean, like surfing, like that. Like, if you got injured, realistically, you want to do something stupid to get your contracts like torn up in front of you, essentially, or not to be taken care of. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes, but like you wouldn't be playing 5-a-side soccer on a Thursday night and coming in with rolling your ankle. But if you went for like a bit of a surf or whatever, I don't know, it'd be pretty harsh. But no, we didn't. We actually didn't go surf. It was pretty cold when we were over there, but we did go and we did do a sunrise flight over the island. Oh, not over the island, but over like a portion of the island, which was incredible. Yeah. Really, really amazing.
What I was going to say is, if you're not doing the skiing and the surfing and whatnot, then that gives you more time for taking pictures, which obviously helps you and Luke then, because that's something that you're really into.
For sure. So what we did when we were in Tofino was, there is a like secret hidden plane wreck. I don't know the exact history of the plane wreck, but essentially there's no signpost or anything like that, but it is signposted in a way where they have little ribbons tied around trees. And then there is also like a boardwalk in parts where it gets quite wet and marshy. So we did that one day where we hiked for about 2 hours through the woods and following these signs. And there's this amazing plane wreck that's in the mountain, and took some photos there. And then the other thing that we did was, we got on, we went to go do a plane ride, like a scenic plane ride. And it's one of these water boats that they take off just from the harbor. But the day that we wanted to do it, for whatever reason, the weather was quite windy, and then the wind was causing a lot of waves. So the pilot was like, unfortunately, I can't get it out because the way the harbor is, and take off and getting the plane set up, I just feel like it's not safe for everyone. Fine. But we were actually leaving that next morning because it was a 3-hour drive across the island to get to a ferry, and that's the only ferry that we could get. So we needed to try and make sure that we left in time. And we were saying to him like, oh, look, we're leaving tomorrow. We can't do it tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, look, I'll do you a favor, essentially, and I'll come in at the crack of dawn when the sun's rising, and we'll just go out, and then you can go on your way then. So ended up having a few drinks the night before, because it was a Wednesday night, I think, and supposedly that's the big night in town, down at like this pool bar thing. And we're in this bar, and there's people singing karaoke, and like they're terrible, but everyone's loving it. It's small town vibes.
Yeah.
There's a pool table there, and there's this guy who's like 50 years of age, who's like dominating the pool table, and kind of scary, like having too many drinks. He's like twirling the pool cue around like as if it's some sort of weapon when he's like not doing anything. And like at one stage he threatened me because he went to the bathroom. The game was over. He went to the bathroom. Someone else left. There's no one at the table. I'm like, okay, let's like have a go here. He comes back. This is my table. Like, go away now. So I don't like pool that much. Fine. Drinks. And then next morning get up and we do this sunrise flight, and it was one of the most amazing little experiences that I ever did. And funnily enough, me and Luke seemed to do flights when we were in Cape Town at the Sevens as well, organized to do a helicopter flight around Table Mountain and all that part of the world. It was myself, Luke, and then a couple of the it was Greg, Irish player, and then we had two of the management as well, our physio and media guy from the IRFU. So Luke was in the back with them. So yeah, love it. It's great crack, and it was good to see him over the weekend too when he came over.
I thought where that was going was that guy was going to be flying the plane tomorrow. The guy, you should change that story now. Then we met him. He was flying the plane.
Jesus, yeah.
This Greg fella, never heard of him. But yeah, you seem to be doing a bit of content creation the odd time with him, in fairness. Down in Wexford at the weekend, he may have been vlogging, may or may not have been. Do you plan things like that, or do you just kind of get together and the odd time you would be both filming or looking for content and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it was just funny enough how Wexford worked out. It was like I spoke to Foster because I was asking him about the salty islands and stuff like that. Knowing that the puffins are only there for a certain amount of time, like April to July, and I knew that basically our schedule wouldn't really allow me to get down there at any time except for really this Monday that was coming up. So I just was asking him questions about it and asked him if he knew about the ferry, and I was looking at going down myself, and then he's like, oh yeah, I've been out there loads of times. I'll organize a boat if you really want to go down. Which he did, and one thing led to another, and I was talking to Greg, and then Greg asked him about it, and Greg wanted to come down too. So it was that's just the way it worked out in regards to that. And then Greg was doing some filming because he had a takeover with Connecticut, I think. So he was just recording some stuff and a nice day out and using their products or whatever. So no, we wouldn't really plan a whole lot. I mean, unless there was something specifically that we knew was coming up and wanted to cover, and we needed each other's help from some regard. Then obviously you just ask each other. But that's the beauty of social media and the joys of it, that you can just kind of hang out with some people that like to do it, and you can just do a whole day out. And I've got a lot of stuff that I want to go through basically now over the next coming days, because I haven't had an opportunity to do it, but got a lot of photos of the puffins and some video and stuff like that. And it was a really amazing trip, and definitely worth going down for. A lot of people haven't even heard of it in Ireland, and they didn't even know that you can see puffins. So it's still not that well known, and there wasn't that many people down there, but it was a beautiful day and a cool place to go.
The content creation and the editing of the photos, videos and stuff like that, then that's always been a big passion of yours, or was that something that you took up when you were playing rugby with a view to, this is something that I would like to do after I'm finished with all this? Or were you doing it beforehand?
It was a bit of both, really. It started with, I remember being a kid, having a camera, taking photos, really like it, but never really doing anything about it. Then there was a long time when I never took any photos. And then when we were on the Sevens, I had a GoPro, and I would take a captain's run photo or a post-tournament photo with the team, when we won a trophy or whatever, and I would always post that, and the lads loved it. And I started then documenting a bit of the Sevens and really enjoyed it and was learning a lot and having a lot of fun with it. And then I moved to Australia for 6 months as study abroad program. And when I was down there was kind of a different mindset around social media or creating content for yourself. And people really, in a very Australian fashion, got around it, get around it. And the lads were going spearfishing, or they were going hiking and doing all these trips. And then they were creating videos, putting it on Facebook. And, everyone was reacting with it, liking it, commenting, sharing, and not for the sake of it. They were actually really enjoyed what the people were doing. One of my friends, my best friend, probably down in Australia, Zal, he's a spear fisherman from North Queensland, and he goes out on these amazing trips. And at the time, he was recording stuff on GoPro, and he put up something on YouTube before, and he had like 10,000 views, and it absolutely blew my mind. And he started teaching me a little bit about it. I started creating my own stuff. I knew I was going to do some trips, and I ended up doing a trip along the whole entire eastern coast on the Greyhound, and I went to Bali as well. Documented the whole thing, ended up putting a video together, and just loved it. And then when I got back, I ended up buying like my first kind of camera for like 300 euros, this little Canon. Kept documenting, kept recording, and then I got to a stage where I just said to myself, like, look, I really want to start doing this professionally for other people or brands or myself, and end up buying like a proper big boys camera for
Too much.
like $2,000 at the time, I think. Yeah, it was a Sony A7 Mark III, which still to this day, price wise, is like the best on the market for what it's able to do. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to buy a camera that ended up, you know, not getting turned over by technology. You know how quick it goes. And still is really great, and I love it. And yeah, like, it's not about the gear, but you know, if you're going to be creating professionally, like, there's a certain standard you have to go for. So I just said, like, I'm just going to bite the bullet, go do it. And you know, it's turned out to pay off. And yeah, it's definitely where I want to go with it post rugby career. And I'm trying to ensure that when I finish rugby, the transition is smoother than, you know, not having something in the background. So far so good. There's still a lot of work to do and a lot of people to meet and connects to make and stuff. But yeah, really enjoying it, and it's fantastic. I love every minute of it. Yeah, can't complain.
Well, to be playing in the MLR and the World Series is kind of the ideal kind of scenario for anyone that would be doing this kind of content creation that you are. So you're in a good kind of space there. But I would be very interested in all these places that you've been, because there's a big contrast in the places that you've been. Bright lights of cities and then really remote islands or mountains and whatnot. Would you see yourself settling in a city in the future, or not settling at all, or living in a cabin in the woods?
I could probably do both, to be honest with you. I think it's just where my headspace would be at the time. Like, growing up, I was never really a city person. I still don't think I'm a big city person, even though I'm living in LA. But the likes of like London, I've only starting to enjoy the last couple of years. I think what used to happen was that I became incredibly overwhelmed by big cities, in part because there's so much to do. So I couldn't really figure out what to do with myself. And I'd be, you know, getting on a subway and going across the whole city, you know, for an hour, and do something there for half an hour, and then try and get on the subway to go somewhere else, and then trying to do that. And you're going all around, where I learned over time that the best thing to do and get an appreciation for cities, kind of just staying in one or two areas, and figure out what's going on there, and what the vibe is there, and why people really like it there. Whether it's the food or the pubs, or, you know, maybe there's like museums or photos and whatever it may be. So over time, that's kind of what I started doing. So like Shoreditch, you know, I really like that kind of area, and Box Park and all that kind of stuff. And I've got mates there. So I don't know. I do quite like LA if I was to live in a city. One, it is massive, but there's no real tall buildings. And I find, like, when you're surrounded by tall buildings, it's quite like, not claustrophobic. I wouldn't be claustrophobic, but, you know, it feels like you can't escape. Yeah. Whereas like New York City, like, there's that energy. People are fast, rushing around, like, can be rude sometimes. And even though I grew up in New York, just outside the city, it's like, it's a whole different feeling. Whereas LA is quite relaxed. You know, you're in your own kind of neighborhood. I'm in Venice, and, you know, and like, so say Santa Monica's just down the road or whatever. There's all, like, it's quite more relaxed, and it's sun is shining and the beach is there. It's quite nice. But yeah, I could see myself also living, you know, part of the year somewhere on an island like Fiji or something, and really exploring. And I'm really into conservation and wildlife, and that's an area of my life I haven't had an opportunity to explore yet, and really push and get better at and learn a lot more about. But it's an area that I really want to get into a lot more. And I think, like, maybe that's what's going to replace my rugby and the time when I finish. I think when I was in school, I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to study zoology, but my parents were like, "Well, what are you going to do with zoology?" I was like, "I don't know, but I want to do it," kind of thing. And I didn't get the point.
Shut up, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. But no, they were very supportive, and they always have been, and helped me through a lot. So, what I really want to do is I want to go to South Africa, and I want to do my Rangers course. So you can you can learn to basically become a ranger, and you learn everything about the bush and how to protect yourself and others, and how to read like the land, and say prints and of animals and noises and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to do something like that, and just learn about it and then get stuck in. And there's I don't want to get his name wrong now, but the guy who plays for San Diego, last name Peterson, I think it's JP Peterson.
JP Peterson, yeah, used to play for South Africa.
Yeah, he's playing for San Diego, but
yeah.
he's actually involved heavily in rhino conservation.
Okay.
So, you've got connects like this where he's, so I haven't met him before, but, it's someone that I would reach out to and talk to, and, maybe possibly be able to get involved. And a good friend of mine then who plays for Kenya, unfortunately had a bad accident after Bermuda, but Oscar, his family are heavily involved in conservation in Kenya as well. So another contact that I have that I could talk to, and even just be able to get on a trip and document it, and be able to just show people what's out there and what's going wrong, or what we can do to make it go right, and all that kind of stuff I find really fascinating. So yeah, we'll see. There's a lot to do,
Mate, you're the best networker I've ever heard in my life. You almost have a plan without having a plan, like a clear plan, you know what I mean? Which is good. But all these places that you're mentioning, I'm noticing that they're nearly all by the sea, so you have an opportunity to get the budgies out, which is obviously a priority. I was having a look at the Salty Nuts branded budgies on the website there during the week, and mate, you got it spot on. Like, that color scheme is on the ball. And I thought about it for a split second. I said, I can't have some other bloke's name on my arse. But what was the idea behind that? Like, did you design that all yourself, or?
No, like, again, very fortunate in this regard. But I bought my first budgies when I was in Australia that time, and then I did like a bit of a trip, and just thought it was funny and kind of good crack or whatever. And then over time, actually through the sevens, I ended up becoming really good friends with the lads from Budgie. So Jimmy, who runs the UK branch, he was over in Paris at the Paris Sevens. They had a stall made up, and after the games were done, I actually went over to the stall and was like hanging out with them, had a couple of beers, and ended up trying to like sell budgies to people. And I was just basically having a crack and having a laugh. And that night we went out and had a really good time. And eventually the budgie guys ended up coming over to Dublin at one stage, and I was hanging out with them there and kind of kept in touch. And when we went to Sydney, they obviously had the shop in Manly, so hanging out with them there. Anyway, kept bumping into them and having a good crack. And it got to a stage then when Jimmy reached out to me. He's like, "Hey mate, like, obviously we know each other very well, but we really love what you're doing and the budgie and your support with Budgie. Would you be keen in doing a collaboration?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be the best collaboration ever. Would love that." And essentially, like,
this is my moment.
Yeah. In fairness, the Budgie team are brilliant, and like, they have in-house designers, graphic designers, and they sent me over like this concept that they had, and literally that color scheme you see is the initial concept. Like, I didn't change one thing. The only thing I changed was the writing on the back, the text. They sent over 4 versions of text, like stacked, side on, slightly angled, whatever, and I basically just took like one concept from one and one concept to another and applied those together. And that was literally the only change. Like, after that I was like, yeah, perfect, that's done. So that was great. It wasn't a lot of work and going back and forth by any means, and we were able to figure out quick. And they stuck them out, and we did a first run. And fortunately enough, they said at the end of the run, "Hey, look, we were really pleased with how they went, and we'd love to restock them," which doesn't always happen with like these, you would call them custom, I suppose, or collaboration budgies. That, might just be a once-off kind of thing. And I think I'm on my 3rd restock now at the moment, which is really big, and people seem to like them. And it's a lot of fun at the end of the day. it's not something that feels like work by any means. I'm not doing a whole lot, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's good crack, and the lads are great and have a lot of fun with it. It's just great. Yeah.
They obviously were able to gauge your taste fairly well based off your social media. That's the way it is, so that's a benefit. But we're both in a rush now because the State of Origin game is on. Up the Blues.
Queensland.
So we're going to fly through some quick fire questions, and then we're going to get going. First one is proudest achievement to date.
Would be qualifying for the World Series. Just that took so long. It's essentially 5 years to get to that moment. We lost the year before, and family were there. You just have a goal that you want to achieve, and it takes 5 years to get there, but you still get there in the end. And I was bawling, crying for about 2 hours after. But anyway, we won't get into that too much. But that would be that's the last time I think I cried. So yeah, that's definitely my proudest moment.
It's the story you're going to go with anyway. Favorite rugby player of all time?
Oh Jesus. Do you know what? I'm probably going to stick to the sevens. I think Pio Tuai, who used to play for Fiji, he's like this massive lump of a human being who's incredibly skillful, has a step speed, offload king.
That offload out the back.
So I think for me, just watching sevens before getting onto the seven series or even playing it was just like in awe of what he was able to do, and he was definitely one of the best to ever do it. So
did you get to play against him in London, or was he off the squad?
I'm trying to think. I've played against Semi Radradra. I've played against Tuisova.
Best to look with that.
Played against Arani Sal, Jerry Tuai. I played against a lot of those lads. I don't know if we ever played against Pio. I think he left after the 2016 Olympics. So no, I haven't had an opportunity to play against him.
Unfortunate. Right, favorite Neil Warnock quote, because you're big on Warnock.
It has to be the quote about hating injured lads in the dressing room. I think it was funny because a good friend of mine, John O'Donnell from the Sevens, showed me all that. I found it hilarious. And then when I was in Bermuda with a bunch of the boys, I was showing them these videos. And the reason I showed it to was, one, I found it funny, but I was like, I want to try and implement some of these quotes during the year to the Giltinis.
Yeah.
But obviously 90% of the people
so you got injured on purpose.
Lads would. Nah, not yet. But yeah, Neil Warnock's, I hate injured lads in the dressing room. I hate anybody moving around the dressing room. And then it cuts to a scene where an injured lad comes in. He's like, go on, son, get in the bath. You're going to make me sick if I have to look at you. And that's definitely my favorite. Mate, the other one would be having a fag. When you're standing on halfway, having a fag.
Mate, you need to listen to, there's a podcast Paddy Kenny did. And obviously he brought Paddy around to every club that he was at, but that's a must listen for you now. Look it up.
Okay.
Sounds good. It's not off the ball, but man, it's the best. The stories that he just comes out with are hilarious.
He's brilliant. Yeah, he's a good man.
Favorite Gypsy King song?
Oh, it'd have to be Hotel California, Gypsy King mix, I suppose. Yeah, that's my favorite.
It's a great one. Will you do say the Eagles version is real sad, and then the Gypsy Kings just make it real happy.
Gypsy Kings is absolutely brilliant.
You never want to be in Hotel California if the Eagles are there, but if the Gypsy Kings are there, get me there, mate.
For sure.
Favorite Will Ferrell movie?
Oh, it has to be Anchorman. Easy. Yeah, I'm a massive Anchorman fan. That's probably one of my favorite movies ever. He's just brilliant. And then you probably have Step Brothers and Blades of Glory after that.
Yeah, well, you have loads. I had the quote from the other guys up today. He's just, he's a genius. He's
an absolute genius.
Who's playing you in the movie then?
I was trying to think about this. I was trying to think who would be good. I'd love someone like a Chris Hemsworth or something like that. That would be great. I don't know why. I just think Australian kind of has moved around a lot, played in American movies and stuff, but then also probably has some idea of how rugby's done as well. So I can't remember what that rugby movie was, but it was Matt Damon playing in the Springboks and stuff. Obviously amazing movie, but
too short,
really
mate.
know
You're
what's
too
going
short.
On. Yeah. So Chris Evans was probably a bit more.
I thought you were going to go for a bit of Swayze, even though he's probably too old now. But the mullet,
Yeah, maybe if we went back a few years, we get Swayze playing. It'd be alright. Yeah.
What artists have you been listening to a lot recently?
So prior to moving to LA, it would have been Sticky Fingers, would have been like who I'd been listening to the whole time. Now that I live in LA, I'm listening to like basically the Spanish radio all the time. But it's like, it might as well be the equivalent of like the charts. Like, but I can't tell because I haven't heard that music in such a long time. So I'm listening to generic music without even knowing it. But like someone like Daddy Yankee is always coming up all the time,
Yes.
or like Bad Bunny or something like that. So that's something. It's pretty generic. I don't really pride myself on that. I like to try and find a bit more like
Niche.
underground music, but look, that's who I'm vibing with at the moment.
You don't have the
Daddy
time
Yankee.
at the moment, I would say. And
Yeah,
that follows
exactly.
on to the next one is, do you have the time to read any books at the moment? Have you been reading anything?
Oh, I try to read when I can. I actually did a full year of reading one book a month, which was one of the best things I ever did, and I really want to get back to it. And I don't know why I have put it off. I'm reading a book. It's quite a brutal title. It's a war book of the Japanese in China at the moment. It's called The Rape of Nanking. So yeah, quite an intense book, but really interesting, and like it's forgotten. Like essentially, it's quite a forgotten period in time, especially around the war, because it was the beginning of essentially the beginning of World War II. But because of everything else that happened with World War II, this moment just seemed to never really get as much press and much history about it. So learning a whole lot, and very interesting book, but yeah, quite intense.
And then hopefully you mightn't get to China, but you could get to Japan in a few months, please God, and
No,
you get
yeah,
to see
here
a
we
few.
go.
So the last question then is the big one. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? That's always a great question. I think probably well, one, keep doing what you're doing, because it's been good so far. But like I've always kind of had this mindset of doing my own thing and really doing what I enjoy doing, and thankfully I've stuck to that. Buy Bitcoin, maybe could be another one.
That's been there a few times.
Yeah, I can imagine. But the other, like, it would probably be like, back yourself and really believe in your capabilities. Like probably more from a rugby standpoint from when I was younger, just because obviously I grew up not playing it, and then when I was like 14 started playing it, so kind of felt like I was on the back foot. And then in games I would be quite doubtful or hesitant in my playing abilities, and only over the sevens really helped that. And I also had like a sports psychologist as well, Steve McIver, who really helped me out, especially early in my sevens career. So I'm really glad and fortunate that I was able to come across Steve, and we had good crack and good laughs, but he really helped me out. So yeah, like really just believe in yourself and your capabilities, because at the end of the day, you're just playing rugby and you're there to have fun, so you don't need to be so hard on yourself. But you'll get there in the end.
Great advice, and we hope that the confidence is right and high now, because you've achieved it all, and we're all behind you now going into the repechage. So hopefully you go do it. But cheers for coming on. That was thoroughly enjoyable. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time. Cheers.